What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad Podcast. Today, I am stoked to have another conversation here on the BizDad Podcast with Alan Underwood. Alan, you were on episode 45 a while back, and I'm looking forward to kind of catching up on where you are, what kind of changes we have going on, some of the exciting things you have going on in your life, including becoming a grandparent. So, really looking forward to kind of hearing about all of this. So, if you can, go ahead and for those who have not listened to the previous one, go ahead and give us a quick recap on who you are, tell us about your family, and tell us about your business.
Well, it is awesome to be back with you, Adam. I actually just went and revisited that episode, and I was shocked myself at what's happened in a year. So who I am, I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather now, which sounds really strange to say. I'm a business owner. I'm a coach. And I'm a pilot, which we share that in common, which is a lot of fun. By way of update, just in the last year, and we can go wherever we want to go with this, but I now have 2 grandkids, so a 200% increase in grandkids over the last year, which is a really great metric. Our first grandson will be 1 year old actually tomorrow. And we just had the chance to spend a week with him and my daughter and son-in-law, seeing Sequoia National Park, Yosemite, and just spending some great time together. And nice. My granddaughter is 6 months old, and they're both so much fun. It almost makes having the kids worth it. So big advocate for having grandkids.
Welcome to the BizDad Podcast, where we dive into the melding of fathership and entrepreneurship with your host, the original BizDad himself, Adam LaBar. Adam is a Christian, a former Air Force officer, a dad to 3 amazing kids, a coach, a real estate investor, and a business owner. On this podcast, he'll explore the unique journeys of amazing dads who are striving for greatness in both business and family. So whether you're a dad who is an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a man striving to be a better dad, get ready as the BizDad brings you conversations to inspire, challenge, and equip you to be a better dad and entrepreneur. And now, here's Adam.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody I talk to that's a grandparent, they say the same thing. Like having kids is just so amazing, but yet having grandkids is like a whole other level of amazing. And when you think about like what kind of our purpose here is to have kids that have kids, right? And like if we only have kids, then it kind of stops there. But having kids that have kids is how generations continue. So I love that feeling can be connected with where you're at in your life. But you also have some younger kids as well, right? How old is your youngest kid?
Our youngest just turned 10. So we have a 10-year-old at home. Our oldest is 25, and then the grandkids we've talked about. So
yeah. Man, oh man. So a 10-year-old and a 10-year-old kiddo and then a 1-year-old grandkiddo. So that is that's fun. 10-year-old gets to be an uncle already, and his son, right? Is your youngest?
Aunt. So my 2 youngest are girls, and then so we have 5 girls, 3 boys, and the 2 youngest are girls.
All right, yeah. So the 2 youngest get to be aunts at such a young age. I bet you that's fun for them. Yeah. Do they talk about that and like the excitement of that, or not really yet?
Yeah, they love it so much. It's been fun watching them in that role, and then also, it's been really fun. Watching my daughters be moms and my sons-in-law and watching them become dads, and recognizing that none of us knew what we were doing at that age, and it turned out okay. So God's plan works for all of us, and no matter what people are going through today, it's probably going to work out okay if you just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. What is that old song? If you're going through hell, just keep going. You might get out before the devil even knows you're there. Yeah,
that's right.
Just put your shoulder down and go. Like that's all you can do. Life is going to throw things at you. It is what it is. None of us knew how to be parents before we were parents. Like it's part of the process. So,
well, and even once you became a parent, my 10-year-old is who she is today, but tomorrow she's going to be somebody different. And she's very different from my 12-year-old. And neither one of them I have, they change, I change, and every kid is different. So even, there's some things that you pick up along the way, but ultimately it's a constant process of learning. I think grandparents appear to be awesome because they've made all the mistakes with the kids, and now they can apply the wisdom and knowledge that they've gained, and they look like they're awesome. The reality is they've just had some more experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, the wisdom comes from all the mistakes that you've made. And now you get to enjoy watching that as with your grandkids. So it's something that I talk to the audience here and everybody I chat with about it. It's like, I want to raise my kids in a way that they, like, my boys become better men than me, and my daughter marries a better man than me. And then I get to watch them become better parents than I ever was by passing on my mistakes to them. So they see, like, hey, this is how you can correct them. And hopefully I just get to be a sounding board, and like, they want to come over, and I get them. They want to have grandparent time with their kids. And like, I really look forward to those moments, even though they're, my oldest is as old as your youngest. So, it's going to be some time before I get to enjoy that moment, but it is something that I've wanted to be a dad since I was 13. And then I've wanted to be a grandpa since I had a kid. So I just get to look forward to those next stages. So what would you say has been the most enjoyable part of becoming a grandpa in that time?
I think the most enjoyable part for me anyway is looking at these brand new people and really feeling a deep sense of connection. With my grandson, almost from the moment he was born, I was like, man, you and I have been friends for a long time. There's some connection prior to this life where, I was just like, man, we've hung out before, and this is just a renewal of that. And I think part of that too is when you're a new dad, generally speaking, probably not great financial position. There's probably a lot of stress, whether working or growing a business or going to school or whatever it is. And now you're a little bit more financially stable. You've recognized that you can make a lot of mistakes with these little people, and things are going to turn out okay. And so, the way that you show up for them is different, and that's been enjoyable. I think you savor it more because you recognize how quickly it goes. So, while we were up near Yosemite, we went to this little lake, and we're just on the beach and just holding his hand and walking up and down the beach and letting him splash in the water. There was 2 hours of really just being present there. And I doubt that at the same spot as a dad, I was probably more worried about, man, are they going to drown? Or, I've got to get back to work, or whatever the thing was. Yeah. And with my granddaughter, the same way. I just look and I'm like, how much, can I do for this little girl that will help her have just the most amazing life possible? So, I don't know. I find it difficult to explain, but there is a deep connection there, and just an excitement to watch their life unfold. Also, it probably has a lot to do with the fact that you're not up with them all night, every night.
Yes.
So, it gets to be enjoyable because you're not just tired and worn out.
Yeah. And you get to focus on those other things, right? Because when you are exhausted and worn out of being a full-time dad in it the whole time, it's hard to step aside and look at it from a 30,000 foot view. Where as a grandparent, you're like, man, I miss being at that 10,000 foot view, but I would not give up this 30,000 foot view to save my life because it's so wonderful to watch. So,
yeah.
What's going on, everybody? I wanted to jump in and take a second to tell you about the awesome team over at Wise VAs. Oftentimes, as entrepreneurs, we can feel a bit overwhelmed with mundane tasks that eat up our valuable time, and it's time to reclaim that schedule, all right? It's time to stop doing some of those $10 an hour jobs and give them back to an elite group of talent that are there specifically to help you and help you stay in your zone of genius. So delegate those $10 an hour tasks to focus on more $1,000 an hour tasks. Reclaim what matters most in your life, which is your time. Get that amazing team of elite remote talent that is there to help support you and make sure that you are giving back the best to your company. So schedule a free strategy call at getwisevas.com/Adam. That is getwisevas.com/Adam. It is an amazing group, an amazing team. They do an awesome job with everything that they've got going on there. If you have some tasks on the side, whether it's administrative, whether it's editing, whether it's recording, whatever it is, they have got an assistant for you, someone who is going to be able to help you out and take some of those tasks off of your plate. I thank Wise VAs every day for helping me process all of these podcasts, helping me take care of a bunch of stuff in the background. And I definitely would recommend them over to you. So again, getwisevas.com/Adam. All right. Thanks a lot. Back to the show.
So now, what is Yosemite? I wanted to ask, especially that you have a plane over the back of your head, behind your head, and we talked about you being a pilot before. Did you fly you and the family up there, or how did that trip happen?
No, we didn't. So that was a 12-hour road trip. So,
ooh, all right.
One of the really fun things about that is it's something that I've had on my vision board, which if I were to turn the camera around and point it the opposite direction, you would see the vision board in front of me there. But it's a trip that my family and I have been talking about for a year, that we're going to go see Sequoia, we're going to go see Yosemite, go see the Napa Valley. It was something that was in the personal affirmations that I listened to every morning, and to be able to have foreseen that and preload what kind of experience I was going to have with my family and then doing it. Now, there were a lot of parts of that I didn't envision. Like, I really didn't think through 12 hours on the road to get there and, those types of things. But the experience of being there was just magical. And now we're older as parents also. And whereas before it probably would have been like this hustle to get there, see as much as possible. But when you ask my kids, like, the most enjoyable part about Yosemite was at one of the waterfalls, they were like, "Hey, can we go play in the water?" We're like, "Yeah, sure." We don't really care what time we get back. So we just went down to the creek and for about an hour just splashed around together in the water and had some fun. And that meant that we didn't see some of the things that were on the list of things that we wanted to see, but it turned out better. So it was a bucket list adventure that we got to check off. It was remarkable. It was awesome.
Yeah, I know that for me, I have a hard time because I'm a very mission-oriented type of person. My brain wants to accomplish a mission and be done. So being able to step aside and be able to go, okay, it's okay that if we don't get to, like, I wanted to be somewhere at 9:52 and 42 seconds, and we got there at 9:53 and 15 seconds. I'm pretty angry about that. It's 32 seconds off, And so it's difficult for me to kind of step back and enjoy those moments. But when I've caught myself saying, okay, before my wife and I got stationed in Japan, we did a trip from Georgia up through the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we stopped a few different times, and we were working our way up to New York to go see my family before we left. And my wife was concerned, and rightfully so, that the trip was not going to be fun because I was going to want to stop at all these. Like, we need to get to this spot because that's where we're spending the night, and then I want to get to this spot the next day. And I told myself I got to let that go and just enjoy this. And we've got some awesome pictures in the fall of us just standing, and it just rained a little bit. We got these beautiful fall leaves behind us, and all because we stopped and took pictures in a creek and then at that spot. And I was like, boy, what memories I would have missed had I just stayed on that mission oriented thing. So as you've kind of grown through perhaps the same thing that I'm still trying to grow through, how have you been able to tell yourself it's okay, slow that down, play in that creek for a little while, enjoy that road trip, take those extra stops on that 12-hour road trip because you saw something cool on the side of the road or whatever it is? How have you kind of trained yourself to be able to do that a little bit better?
I don't know if it's been so much training as it has been, going back, we talked about experience and looking back at trips that I've had with my family. It's not enjoyable for dad or mom to be checking boxes, right? What was enjoyable were these little things. In fact, when on the drive home, I was asking the kids, hey, what were some of your favorite things from this trip? And, we had stayed in this wonderful Airbnb with all these amenities and, we'd seen both of those parks and a lot of the Central Valley of California. And my 16-year-old daughter was like, I really enjoyed when we turned on music in the car and we were singing together as we were driving. And I really liked playing in the river. And I really liked going to the lake and just playing on the beach for a little bit. And so like everything that they talked about were the little things where we didn't have an agenda. And for me, all of that was super enjoyable, but there's also another moment at Yosemite where, if you haven't been, there's a stable where they used to do stagecoach rides, and we were there by accident. We stopped because every 2 hours, my youngest has to use the restroom. So we stopped to find a restroom, and off to one side was this stable, and the doors were open, and I love history, and so I wandered over to see what was going on, and there was one guy sitting in there, an older gentleman, and as I got to visiting with him, he's worked at Yosemite for 52 years. He's the only park ranger in the U.S. who's also a stagecoach driver. So I'm sitting there going, I am meeting a one of one. So I went and got the kids, and I said, he's like one of the old sequoias, right? Like, here is something where you can't replace this kind of wisdom. And we just spent 30 minutes or so with this man, and whose really only purpose now, they're not doing stagecoaches anymore, but he shows up every day because he hopes somebody will just walk in there and he can just share what he's learned over 52 years of driving horses through Yosemite. And it was just really enjoyable. And that's something that doesn't happen if you're like, okay, you guys are out of the restroom. Now we're behind schedule by 10 minutes. We've got to get to this thing to see it, right? But it was like, hey, we're here for the day. And even while we were there, my wife and I were walking around, and we're like, hey, we played in the river. Kids, how are you feeling? Well, we'd kind of like to go back and sit in the hot tub now. Okay, great. That meant we didn't see some of the things, but it was the trip they wanted. And ultimately, that's what was on the vision board, is overlaid on those pictures of Yosemite and Sequoia were silhouettes of my family there. I'm like, trip was for them. If I want to go back and see everything, I can do that. I can take the airplane and fly by myself. It's I can get there and back in one day, but this really was about them, and it just made it so enjoyable.
I absolutely love it. It's a difficult thing for very mission oriented folks like myself to do, or even a lot of driven entrepreneurs. I'd imagine very much the same way. It's like it's hard to let that go because we have tasks that we want to get accomplished. But I think that's one of the beauties of having a family is it gives you that opportunity to step away from that part of your brain that is so focused on the business and breaking down exactly what things need to be done and how it all needs to be done, and being able to step aside. So what tips would you give folks that are hearing this to say, okay, separate your brain a little bit from the mission focused thing? Obviously you talked about your experience and different things that have led you down there, but some tangible things for the individual that's listening to this, perhaps me, that can hear this and say, okay, this is how you can think about your next vacation. This is how you can think about, planning for that, or maybe not planning for it as it may be, or whatever the case is.
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked. So when I coach entrepreneurs, CEOs, husbands, fathers, couples, what I talk about is identity, vision, and legacy. And so, the first part of that answer is, what is the identity that I want? Do I want the identity of somebody that's seen everything? I'm somebody that sees everything when I go to this park, or do I want the identity of being the best husband, father, grandfather that I can be? And that doesn't mean that those things have to be in conflict, but in this case, it was deciding in advance, having a vision for what I wanted this trip to be. And like my affirmations for this trip, the statements that I was creating was, I'm experiencing joy and gratitude and awe with my family as we visit some of the most beautiful places on earth. And so I had decided who I wanted to be. I had set the vision, including how I wanted to feel about this trip. And none of that had anything to do with checking all of the boxes. So whether it's planning a vacation or growing a business, the first thing you have to decide is who you are. And then you have to decide where you want to go. And then after that, you can look at the legacy. And, while we were sitting there playing in the creek, my wife turned to me and said, our kids are going to remember this moment forever. They may forget what it was like driving in and seeing the mountains for the first time, but they're never going to forget the fact that Dad stopped, took off his shoes, got in the river with them, and was splashing and throwing rocks and playing with them. And so, that really is, if I can help anybody at all in this world, that's where I want to do it. Is let's get clear on who you want to be, what the vision of that person is, what kind of legacy you're going to leave behind, and then we can work on some action steps to get there. And it went beyond being in the parks. Our last day, back to mission oriented, like I knew we had a 12-hour drive, right? And so my kids were like, what time are we going to go? Because in the past, I'm like, we're all going to be in the car at 5. We're going to be, whether you're tired, hungry, it doesn't matter. You're in the car. We're driving because we have to get back home. That's the next thing. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. When we get up, we'll get ready and we'll go. Whatever time that is, the house is still going to be there, but let's not put that pressure. And the night before, my 14-year-old son had asked if, I could play pool with him. And because we were trying to get dinner and help my daughter get out, and I didn't do it that night, but while everybody was in that chaos of packing the next morning, I said, hey, Grant, why don't we go grab that game of pool? Well, that turned into, Grant, let's bet a milkshake, and whoever wins gets a milkshake. Well, Grant left and went and told my 16-year-old daughter that that's what the deal was. So after that game of pool with him, it was a game of pool with her. And then it was my 12-year-old, and then it was my 10-year-old. And pretty soon, 2 hours had gone by where before we were supposed to be on the road, but we got 2 hours of time together that, again, is irreplaceable. That's going to be one of my best memories from that trip is we didn't just have a schedule and jump in the car and go, but we really pulled everything we could out of this experience with our kids.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember, coming back on one of our more recent trips was up to Tennessee. We drove from Florida up to Tennessee, and we spent some time up there. And on the drive home, I did one of those random stops in the river, playing in the river, skipping stones, like watching my kiddo fall into the river. I'm 90% sure on purpose, like fell in, yes, completely by accident. The slipped. Oh my goodness, how did that happen? But my wife ended up doing the same thing. So only hers was actually on accident. But I get to sit here and laugh at that because I told myself, it's okay, just pull over. It's all right if I drive an extra, like if we're on the road an extra 2 hours because we stopped to do this, because my kids still talk about that portion of the trip. So it's another thing I love that you mentioned, and it's encouraging for me because I remember now looking back at that moment and going, do that again. Don't let that moment slip past you again, because I know that I've let those moments slip past me before because I've been so focused on the wrong things of this trip. And oftentimes, we say the thing all the time when it comes to life, it's not the destination, it's the journey. But we don't think about that necessarily when I'm on a road trip. I think about, the destination is what matters, but no, like that journey, we get so much out of it that why would we not enjoy that journey? So it's encouraging to hear some more of that. I'm hoping other people are hearing that as well. You mentioned the coaching side of the house, and I think that's a newer addition since we spoke last. So tell me a little bit about your coaching ventures you're up to now.
Yeah, well, that is a work in progress, and honestly, Adam, for several years, I've had people asking me either to coach with them or to coach them. I've helped people buy businesses, start businesses for years, but I've always been, I guess, reluctant on the coaching side. I guess I wasn't quite sure what the marriage between being motivated by selling somebody coaching and being really, truly motivated in helping. And I saw those as I guess, incompatible. What I've learned, and this was actually after hiring a coach, so probably a big part of this was hiring a coach and recognizing the value that it brought into my life, and also that if there's a real relationship, I think, in your mind between what you're paying someone and the value that you extract. So, if I'm giving you something for free, I've told you what it's worth, right? And so you can disregard it because it doesn't cost you anything. There's no investment that you have to make. And what I've discovered is now that I've placed value upon what I'm going to share, people are a lot more attentive. And for me, that's more enjoyable because I know what I'm sharing will help if it's applied. And prior to recording, you and I were talking about one of my daughters commenting on, well, Dad, what are people paying you for? And me saying, well, it's all the stuff that I've been trying to give you for free for the last 20 years of your life. But there's some truth in that because when it's available and it's for free, you don't have to do it because there's really no cost. But when you've made an investment in a teaching or in principles or in a mode of living or whatever it is, you're much more likely to apply it because now there's the risk of losing out, right? You want to get a return on that investment. What I've discovered is it's by far the most enjoyable thing that I've ever done. And what is enjoyable about it is there's a moment, usually every time I meet with somebody, where you can literally see something click and a life change. And I've watched, people break through mental barriers that they've had, work through traumas that they've experienced. I've helped people grow their business by 20-25%, which is making a huge difference. But the biggest difference is going back to what I talked about is when you can help somebody get clear on their identity and their vision, it's not just that person that you're changing. One of the couples that I'm working with, shared recently that after what we talked about in how to coach their employees, they went back and had this really meaningful conversation where they discovered things about some people that were working for them that they had never known before. And it's really given them motivation to be better leaders. They've been able to have more time with their kids. And so ultimately, as a coach, I get to watch lives change and, ultimately legacies change, which could be generations. And that is, I've discovered one of the most addicting drugs for me personally. Right up there with flying the airplane. When you watch somebody's life change, it is just something that is, that's a hit that I want to get over and over and over again. And so, I've got lots of calls on my calendar where people are just reaching out for advice, and I'll do that for free all day long. When people really want to make an investment and make exponential change, that's when it really gets fun because now they're invested, I'm invested, and we can really, really make some progress for them. So I've been intentionally going pretty slow with it. I only work maybe with 4 or 5 people at a time. Other businesses are busy and are the focus, but this is something I can see myself doing for years to come and just deriving a lot of personal joy and really fulfillment from.
Do you wish that you would have started this sooner, or do you feel like it needed to wait until you were at the phase you're at now to kick it off?
I don't know if I've ever met an entrepreneur or anybody else who discovered something they really loved who hasn't said, man, I sure wish I had known this, years before. And I wasn't ready for it. There were things that I needed to learn. There was a version of me that I needed to become before I was going to be ready. You have to fill your own cup before you can fill someone else's. And it took the experiences that I've had, especially over the last decade of my life, to be at a point where I could really add value to people. And so I'm okay with the timing of where it is. And yeah, sure. If I'd been at that place 20 years ago, it would be great because I'd be 20 years further along than I am right now. But that might also mean that I'm missing working with some of the people that I'm working with right now. So, I don't try not to make a habit out of questioning God's timing and being grateful for where I am and what I have rather than, I didn't lose anything by not doing it 20 years ago, but it sure has been a blessing now.
Yeah, it's when the when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? And sometimes that's ourself. Sometimes it
Right.
takes a little while for us to be ready before we're able to, for us to see some things in our life before we're like, okay, yeah, I totally should have done that a while ago, but I'm glad I waited until now. But what is the structure of if there is structure to your coaching kind of look like? What is it? What does your typical person or couple look like that's coming in, and then how do you kind of work through the identity, the vision, the platform with them?
Yeah, great question. So the one common denominator with everyone, whether they're a CEO or an entrepreneur or a couple, is they all have a problem that they want to solve, right? And generally that problem comes down to, Tony Robbins talks about 6 human needs. And ultimately, everybody's looking to solve those 6 human needs. It's certainty, which could be financial or relationship or whatever. Uncertainty, which is kind of funny. But really, once you have a high degree of certainty in one area, finances, for example, now you want adventure, and that's uncertainty. People are looking for love, or connection. They're looking for purpose and meaning. They're looking for contribution. They're looking for growth. And ultimately, there's always one thing that's keeping them up at night. And for whatever reason, they haven't been able to find the solution to that on their own. So, where I start is very simply having a frank and vulnerable conversation about, hey, what is the biggest challenge that you're having right now? And why do you feel like you haven't been able to solve it on your own? Once we've identified that not usually always, the next thing is identifying what the story is around that issue that they're telling themselves. And so, I dive really deep into past about what their identity is. There's the reality of their identity, and then there's the story of what they're telling themselves about it. And so we dig into that, get some clarity there. I help reshape that identity into something that's going to help them to be positive, productive, and move forward. We do a lot of work on creating a vision, and then a vision board, and then also crafting a personal story. Some would call them affirmations around that. And that usually is the first couple of months where we're spending a lot of time identifying challenges, helping to isolate those challenges, providing tools to overcome them. And then after that, we've really helped with identity and vision, then we can move on to more tactical things. And it becomes a choose your own adventure from there. I'm working with someone right now who's a CEO of JP Morgan Chase. The challenges that he has are very different than the couple that bought a business a year ago and they're trying to figure out how to open their second location. There's similarities, and a lot of it ultimately comes down to what their mindset is and what they believe is possible. But the tools are going to be different there for the young entrepreneur who's trying to grow a business and the executive who's trying to get out of his business and into something that's more passive or less corporate. So, then we get tactical, and we deal with time management, relationship management, and productivity. And, I just provide a lot of tools and resources from my experience. And I draw a lot upon the resources and tools that I've gained from coaching and that other coaches have shared. I think part of the value of a coach is now you've got two brains instead of one. And with a good coach, they're willing to call you out also when you're performing below what you're capable of. And that's certainly what my coach has done for me. Knowing that I'm accountable to somebody every couple of weeks, pushes me to be better.
Yeah, the accountability side of the house is extremely important. When you're hearing some of the things that you're hearing from your clients, right? So maybe there's excuses that they're coming up with. Maybe there's reasons they're calling them reasons, but you're hearing excuses. Maybe there's stories that they've been telling yourselves. How do you kind of break down some of those stories that people are telling themselves that's preventing them from taking that action they need to, or preventing them from seeing that vision that they know they want to see, but they can't. It's a block for them because of the story they're telling themselves.
Yeah. Well, the first part is listening, right? You've got to be able to hear. And then with everyone, the first reason that they give you is always going to be a loss leader. They're going to give you something to kind of throw you off what the real thing is. And you have to keep asking questions. Why do you believe that? Or who told you that? Why did you choose to believe that about yourself? One example is I was working with a couple who have started actually two separate businesses that they're starting. And the story that she was telling herself about it was, I can't manage money. I'm not a good business person. And as we dug into that a little bit, and I just asked, hey, who taught you this about you? And, ultimately she's crying and saying, well, this is what my mom would tell me growing up, was that I wasn't good with money, or, I could never do a business, or whatever those beliefs are. And for all of us, we've either had an experience which has shaped what we feel or what we say about ourselves, or someone else has said something. Getting personal, there was an experience recently that I was discussing with my wife. It was a Christmas day, and I was young, maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I don't even remember what the thing was, but I got really excited about something that my grandparents had given me. And I remember jumping up and running across the couch and giving them a big hug, and I was really excited. And I remember my dad saying, wow, Alan, calm down. You don't need to get so excited. And the message that I got from that was, oh, it's bad to have that emotion, to get that excited about anything. So what did I do? I shut that down, which has been something that I've intentionally then done for most of the rest of my life, is don't get excited. And also the opposite of that is don't get too sad. So keep yourself in this box. My dad didn't intend for that to be the message, right? And I don't know what was going on for him, but that's what I interpreted, and that became the story. It became a reality, and that's been something that I've since had to untangle and go, you know what, that doesn't serve me anymore. And it's okay to go ahead and set that down and replace it with something that's more empowering for me, which it is okay to get excited. And it's okay to celebrate when I get what I want. And it's okay to be happy and to experience joy and to express it. And ultimately, that's, I find that a lot is there's things that parents have said or done or demonstrated in the way they handle money, the way they handle relationships, the way they handle business, the way they handle their work, the way they handle school, that has a profound impact on how their kids are now interacting with the world. And we hold on to these beliefs that we picked up when we were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12. And now we're trying to use these beliefs that we picked up 20 years ago, and they're just not working for us anymore. And they're holding us back from who we can be.
I am so passionately behind what you're saying right there. It's one of the reasons I started this podcast too, is to help dads especially to understand that the things you're doing, you may only be doing because that's what you saw before, not because that's what you actually want to be doing. It's one of the reasons I usually start, as I think we did on your first podcast, I start with asking about your dad, right? Tell me about your dad. Because if you've created this image of, even subconsciously created this image of how you're going to live life based off of what you saw, then you're living somebody else's idea of it, not yours. So that's where I think what you're talking about in your coaching side is creating your own identity and understanding who you want to be helps you now make the decisions that are best fit with you, not best fit with the beliefs that were given to you as you were growing up, but your actual beliefs and who you are and where you want to be. And I can't tell you how many times I look back and go, man, I only did these things with my money because of this. I only did these things with my relationships because of what my parents did. I only did these things. And it was all a map based on what somebody else drew for me, as opposed to me actually sitting down and understanding who I wanted to be and where I wanted to be going. I love that you brought that up, because it's very important. And I think that's important for us as parents to think about as we are doing things. What are we impressing upon our kids, and how do we give them their own independence to create their own vision and their own idea on who they want to be? How would you, or how do you do that with your kids? I mean, you've had now 25 years of learning how to do this better. So how has that evolved over time? How are you kind of making sure that your kids are creating their own path as opposed to following in your footsteps just because they saw it or because you've pressured them into it?
Well, I think starting with the foundation, again, this is what I do with every client, is what is your identity? And the first thing is you have to become aware, right? And so one of the things that I invite my clients to do, and I've done with my older kids anyway, has been, there was a Harvard or Princeton professor years ago that would bring new students in, and he would have a fish in a jar, and he would just say, the lesson was, look at your fish. And oftentimes he would repeat that same invitation with the same fish, with the same student, sometimes for months, inviting them to really look deeper at this fish. And so I'll invite my clients to look at their fish, to tell me about their life, but without the story about it. So, if I were asking you, tell me about your military service, tell me about your business experience. And what I find is that people will take this experience and they might say, I was in the military, but I was only whatever. And they've got this negative attachment to what they didn't achieve or whatever. So we'll address that. But really what it comes down to is I have a really strong belief that the two most powerful words in the English language especially are the words I am. And, for anybody that has a religious background, you recognize that those are the words that God used to introduce himself to Moses also. But anything that follows I am is something that we create. And so just imagine for a moment, I'll give, a personal example here with my daughter. At 3, 4, 5 years old, she walks into our kitchen. She's wearing a superhero mask. She's wearing a cape, and she walks into the kitchen and announces to my wife, I'm a Supergirl. And my wife looks and she says, well, I'm a Supergirl too. And my daughter looks back at her and kind of questions that a little bit. And then she says, no, I'm a great Supergirl because I have a cape and this thingy on my eyes. And she didn't doubt that she was a Supergirl because she was wearing the cape and the mask, right? Well, Adam, fast forward not even 10 years later, and we discover that my daughter is cutting her wrists. In my opinion, she hadn't ever stopped being a Supergirl or a great Supergirl. But somewhere in her mind, she got the idea that I'm fat, or I'm ugly, or I'm worthless, or I'm not good enough. And those words were creating so much pain mentally and emotionally that she was expressing that now physically. And so what I address with the couples that I work with the men and women that I work with, is what are you most frequently, let's be honest, what are you most frequently saying about yourself? Are you saying, I'm a failure? I'm not good enough. I'm not in very good shape. I'm not that smart, right? All of those things create your reality. Well, if I can just change what follows the words I am and get you to believe it, you can become anything that you want to become and do anything that you want to do. And so we've become really intentional. And this is within the last few years in my house, because it's something I only learned in the last few years, is I really watch what my kids say, especially when they're talking about themselves. You know, another recent example, my 18-year-old would fall asleep in the bathtub. So I get up one morning to go to the gym. It's 4:00 in the morning, and I walk out, and there are towels outside the bathroom. And I'm like, what is going on? I walk over, carpet squishes, and I knew right away, he fell asleep in the bathtub overflowed. I'm like, okay, well, we'll have to deal with this in the morning. I walked downstairs, and I realized the extent of the bathtub overflowing was the water had come through the ceiling, was running out the garage. This was a major problem. There's sheetrock in the garage falling down. And I went up and woke my son up, and I said, hey, you're going to need to clean this up. And he calls later and he says, Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm just so dumb. It was stupid. And I said, Rabel, we're going to stop right there. Here's the reality is you fell asleep in the tub and it overflowed. That doesn't make you dumb or stupid or anything else. What happened is what happened. And now we're going to rewrite that story. Is I believe that you are capable of taking care of this problem. And so guess what? I'm not going to do anything about it. I want you to find the resources. I want you to do what it takes to get it cleaned up. And by the end of that day, he had found somebody that could do drywall. He'd gone out and borrowed or rented the fans to dry it up. Within a week, he had fixed the entire problem. And the entire difference, I really believe, was that version of me was in a place where I could recognize that this wasn't a stupid kid. This was a simple mistake. And shaming him would have done irreparable harm. Him walking through life believing that he was dumb or broken because he fell asleep, because he was tired or whatever the reason was, didn't really matter. But instead, we changed that whole thing, and now he knows that whatever problem he gets into, he can solve it. And I can go back to that and say, hey, look, you destroyed our house and you fixed it in a week. That is so amazing, right? So I love sitting down with people and identifying where they are beating themselves up and taking that stick away and turning it into something powerful that they can use to then create something amazing. Because if I can do that for them, and they can do that for their kids, and they can do that for their kids' kids, I really believe that that's where a legacy happens, is in changing those generations. And, I've had to do that for myself. And it's so easy to, you miss an appointment or you don't close a deal or something, and to start beating yourself up, and just to rewind that tape and go, no, this doesn't define who I am. But it's something that I work on every day. I have, I tell myself every single morning who I am so I don't forget. I have a vision board so I don't forget who I'm capable of becoming. And that's what I want with my kids. And one of the best things that really has ever happened, but this was just in this last year, is my daughter sent me a picture of the vision board and the affirmation statements she'd created for my grandson, who at the time was maybe 3 months old, and that she was telling him every day. And if I never coached another client, the fact that my grandson is being told every day, I am smart, I can do anything, that she's telling him these goals. I'll try 5 new foods this year. Like, I will take my first steps. I will, was so incredible to me. And that same thing that is effective with that now 1-year-old is also true for somebody that's 45 or 50 and going through a transition or dealing with a divorce or struggling in their marriage. Is we can completely alter the reality and the outcome really just with some words, and then being held accountable to the story that we tell ourselves about it. And so that's very frequent. I'll get a client that comes in and, oh, here's where I'm struggling this week. Okay, well, is that the reality, or is that the story you're telling yourself? Let's dig into that. And helping people reshape their future by reshaping really just what they're saying to themselves.
I hope that anybody listening goes back and rewinds this last 10 minutes and kind of plays it again. And I want to look at, you said a very personal and painful story about your daughter, and one of the things, I'm going to tie a couple things together here, is, you mentioned she was 3 or 4 or 5 years old at the time with the mask on and the cape. And that is what made her a super girl, right? Looking at, your wife, her mom, well, she didn't have any of those things. So she can't be like a super girl like me.
Right.
And when you tie, I'm going to tell a separate story and then I'm going to tie them both together. We were at Trail Life, which is like a Christian version of Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts went a little crazy, so they created Trail Life, and my sons are in Trail Life. And they had a military appreciation day where we get to talk about military service, and you could bring in anything from your family that was military related. And I think I have a very loud crying son. I hope that's not too loud on here. Thankfully, mommy's out there to take care of things. But one of the things I tried to talk about was we have 22 veterans a day that commit suicide, because part of it, I think, is because they don't know who they are. They don't know what their identity is in anymore because they had it in their uniform. Your daughter had her supergirlness tied up in the mask and the cape, not in who she was. The people that you're coaching have their abilities tied up in some story they've told themselves, in some maybe it's a suit that they put on, literally, maybe it is a thing that they've been told about themselves, and that's the badge that they wear. And if one of those ends up missing or tarnished, they've lost it. They don't know who they are anymore. They've lost the ability to see themselves as Supergirl, to see themselves as a productive human being in this world, to see themselves as anything other than that one thing they held their identity in, and to be able to pull themselves apart and identify who they actually are. One of the things I told the boys in Trail Life was, like, your identity should be in Christ, something that never changes, not in your uniform, not in the sports you play, not in the friends you have, not in any of that stuff. If your identity is built on sand, it's going to fall apart. Your identity needs to be built on something that's a lot more solid. And I heard that theme as you were going through all those different stages, all those people that you talked about, or all those scenarios that you talked about. It's like, man, where did these folks have their identity? Where did they have this built in? What was it tied to that was apparently built on sand as opposed to something solid? And I'm hoping that anybody that can hear this can say, okay, well, where is my identity at? What am I tying my identity to? Is it the dollar value of my bank account? Is it the cap rate of my next apartment building? Is it the whatever? Like, what is your value tied in? What is your identity tied in? And if it's not tied into something that's actually real, like, you're going to be hurting yourself big time. So, man,
well, a lot of times we tie our identity to what we do, not to who we are.
Especially men.
Yeah. And, you asked earlier, who the avatar is. Well, a big part of that avatar is who I was not that long ago. And I don't know if you and I have discussed this, Adam, but Who I was 5 years ago was sitting in my truck looking at my handgun and wondering if it was time for me to end my life. And the whole cause of that, there was, loss of 3 parents in 2 years and struggling in a business. But the reality is I had lost sight of my value, and to the point where, my life had the value of a 32-cent 9mm round. I mean, that was where I placed my value. And it's more common, not just in the veteran community, but I run into men and women all the time who come seeking coaching, and I dig through it and realize they're at the same place that I was 5 years ago. And to have what I would call the sacred responsibility, the sacred opportunity to help someone realize their own value and reinforce that value is, again, just so joyful for me. I was working with a group not that long ago, and one of the women in that group was describing the type of business leader that she felt like she needed to be, and she wasn't. And as she was, I let her share everything she thought that would be necessary for her to be successful in this business venture that she was working on. And I said, on a percentage wise, 0 to 100, how close are you to this? And she was like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10%. And I just went around the room and I said, for all of you that know her, where do you think she is? And every single one of them was like, you're like 90% of the way there. Like, we already see this in you. And she was the only one in the room who wasn't able to see the greatness that she already possessed. And so to be able to strip away those barriers and allow people now to see their full value is, again, you can hear it and see it, the emotion in my voice, because it's magical. And, that's where, for me, coaching is a calling. It's an opportunity. I've seen amazing growth in people's businesses and in their careers. And, that's all great. When I see people's marriages change or see the way they talk to themselves change, that's when it really becomes impactful for me and meaningful for me. And I hope that means that they can then take those same lessons to their kids and help them be different. I watch my kids talking differently. So we've been invited next year to do some couples retreats in Italy, and we're really excited about that. On the way home, my youngest daughter, my 10-year-old, said, when we're in Italy next year, here's some things that I want to do. And my wife said, well, that isn't for sure yet. We don't really know the plan. And she goes, I know, Mom, I'm just setting the intention because then it will happen. And I thought, that isn't something she would have said 3 or 4 years ago. It wasn't part of our family vocabulary, but she knows now that there's a vision for our family. She knows that what we say has meaning. And I love seeing that they're becoming intentional about that. So where I might have wished that I had discovered coaching maybe 20 years ago, because it would have been great for my career, what I more wish is I had discovered how to talk to myself better 20 years ago, because I would be a different person. And that, if I can pass that on, then every difficulty that I went through in the last 20 or 25 years to learn those lessons will have been worth it.
Yeah, I appreciate the vulnerability. I did not know that story of you 5 years ago, so it's the first time I'm hearing that, and it's one of those things that's, I think it's good for people to hear that they're not the only ones that may be struggling in certain areas and like having a hard time getting through certain things. And regardless, no matter what, like this is one of those things I hope everybody hears. I used to be a criminal investigator for a long time in the Air Force, and I investigated a ton of suicides. Anytime somebody died, we had to run some sort of investigation on it, even if it was a suicide and we knew it was. We just had to go back. The Air Force wanted to understand, is there something that the Air Force did that would have caused this, all this stuff, right? And since I was always post action, everything that I ever saw was always, it's not possible really to prevent these. If somebody wants to do it, they're going to do it. Until one day, there was one guy that I had heard on a phone call. Like he and I had been working on a book with him. He was writing a book and he was asking my help for some stuff. And then he called me up. I was chatting with him and he was like, I'm just going to send you all of my stuff just in case I never get to finish it. And then there was something else in his voice. There were some things that he had said and I was like, holy crap. I think this guy actually is thinking about taking his life. So I started making phone calls. Like I couldn't get a hold of him anymore. I started making phone calls trying to get in touch with him. And I'm saying all that to say, make sure that you're stepping in. Anybody listening, you're stepping in if you're seeing that in somebody else, and you're asking for the help if you're seeing it in yourself. Go and find somebody. Call me. I don't care. Like you can get a booking link for me on my website. You can get on a call with me at any point. If you don't even know who I am other than listening to my voice right now, reach out to me because I will be very happy to jump on a phone call with you and have a conversation to talk about your worth is way more than what you think it is right now. So I want to throw that out there for sure because it is an unbelievably vulnerable place to be when that's where you feel like that's the only option that's left. And it's I've seen it way too much in my life, and I know that it's possible to come back from, as obviously you do as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I would have missed out on some of the best experiences, best memories of my life. Mm-hmm. But where I was at then, I didn't think any of that was possible. I didn't think where I am today was a possibility. It all looked like a dead end. And, unfortunately, that is where people get for whatever reason. For me, it was the grief of losing some loved ones. For others, it can be loss of purpose after coming out of the military. For others, it can be painful, a divorce or a drug addiction or whatever the thing is. But, what I've recognized is having the courage then to ask questions. I have another client who I flew out to meet with him, and he was asking why he should hire me, and I said, well, you have a lot of options with a coach. Let me give you some. And I said, if this is the kind of coach that you want, you should reach out to this guy. That's not me. Here's what you're going to get with me is I've been through some of the most difficult things that I think a person can experience. 5 years ago, I was at the point of ending my life, and I've figured out what it takes for me mentally, emotionally, physically, financially to come out of there and to have a positive, productive, happy life. And if that's what you're needing help with, then I'm the guy that you should talk to because I've been there. And if you've been there or you are there, and he goes, I haven't even told my wife that I've been thinking about ending my life. And I said, well, any kind of coaching contract or anything else aside, we're going to work on that because I'm here to tell you that what you're going to miss out on in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of your life will make not doing that worth it. And so again, to be able to step into that place and offer someone a resource, just a hand up or a hand out is an amazing responsibility. And a lot of the people I talk to aren't there, but you can still feel like you are. Whatever is keeping you up at night seems like the most, harmful, hurtful, crazy thing that's going on. People want somebody to know what's going on and they want resources to get out of it. And I think that's, what I can offer, whether that's, through formal coaching that goes on for 6 months or a year, or if it's just, like you said, I'm pretty easy to find. My website, there's a lot of ways to schedule a call. And, that is a call that I always take. Hey, I'm hurting and I need some help. Great. Here I am.
Yeah, it's a valuable thing to have somebody that you can rely on, even if you don't know who the person is. So I want to shift gears a tiny bit. You've mentioned somebody that you were talking to in coaching that they thought they were only 10% of the way there, but the rest of the group thought they were 90% of the way there, type of thing. And it got me thinking, like, how do you kind of balance the concept? Like, some people, they don't need to hear, like, oh, you're enough. Like, they need to hear you can do more. Right. Some people need to hear you're enough. How do you figure out through their stories, or how would you recommend folks that are listening to this understand if they're the person? I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Whiplash. A great movie. I highly recommend anybody watch. But it's about this very high level music school where this drummer is trying to be the first chair at this high level music school as a drummer, and the instructor there is super overbearing, like launching instruments across the room, screaming and yelling, cursing at you, telling you you're the worst human being in the world. And there's a part in the story where they're like, they talk about this other very famous musician and say, hey, do you think he would have gotten to that place if he didn't have a coach like me? Or do you think he would have just become like every other musician that's out there that thinks they would one day make it? And it's got me, it often has me wondering, okay, well, some people need a cymbal thrown at their head, like you see in the show. And some people need to know that, no, you're good enough. Like you're good enough at the moment. Like, how do you kind of balance that push and that pull to allow somebody to say, no, like, step it up. You're capable of so much more than this, versus like, it's okay. Like, be happy with who you are, but still want to grow. Like, how do you kind of balance that conversation?
Yeah, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a matter of timing and where somebody's at. So in this example, what she needed was both, right? She needed the recognition that I'm actually better than I think I am, and then some encouragement to put into practice some very simple things, time management. And time management can be as simple as how are you scheduling things, but it can also be how are you prioritizing things. And also just another framework that I work through is just how are you setting goals? Are you setting little goals? And so you're achieving these little goals, but you feel like you're not moving forward. Well, that's simply because of the size of the goal, or if we change either the size or the timing of the goal, does that yield better results that you're going to feel more excited about? So, first it goes back to, I don't think that you can push someone to be better until they recognize that is possible for them. So, again, for me, the foundation is identity, which let's recognize all of us are one of one, going back to what I talked about with that guy at Yellowstone. Now, in his case, he happened to be the only ranger who was a stagecoach driver and had worked for 52 years and all those things. But, Adam, you're also a one of one. There's nobody else that has the exact same experience, the exact same mentality, the exact same situation. And there's innate value in that for everybody. So the first thing is helping them identify the value that they have, and then putting that value to work in their favor. And that can be through, simple things like identity and vision statements and affirmations. It can be through goal setting. It can be tactical tools. But, you do get to a point where you can tell with people, they're showing up 5 minutes late to a coaching call, or you gave them, an exercise to do and it comes back half done, then it is a very motivating conversation. Hey, Adam, I know that you are capable of doing better than this. And if you're going to show up halfway, this isn't worth your time or money, because I don't work with people that are halfway. So you need to decide, are you going to be all in? Are we going to get this done and accomplish the goals that you said you wanted at the beginning of this contract? Or are we just going to be done here because you really don't want to do it? And I can accommodate either way. But my belief is that you're a high performer and you're capable of doing better than what you can do. I also know that I can help you get there. And so what we're looking for now is commitment. right? And usually with people, it's a lack of commitment. It can be a lack of knowledge. You can fix the lack of knowledge. Commitment takes, depending on the person, there's different ways of encouraging, right? But I think, again, the real value in a coach is them seeing what you're capable of beyond what you can see, and just pulling back that curtain and encouraging them to come to that place, wherever it is. So
I love it. It's the both and that everybody likes to talk about, with the both and, like, do both of those. Sometimes you do need to throw a symbol. Sometimes you need to give them a hug. So, and being ready for both situations. So I appreciate that. I want to jump on the development side of the house. We haven't touched on where you're at with that. I know you're doing some development out in San Diego. So tell me a little bit about how that's going, and kind of, we chatted about it in the first episode with you on there. So let's kind of get an update on where your development business is going.
Yeah, it was fun for me to look back at that also. In our last conversation, we're in the middle of our first capital raise, buying our first properties. Well, now we can fast forward a year. We're nearing the end of our third capital raise. So we will have raised about $14 million in the last 2 years. We currently have 18 projects under development. By the end of the year, that should be close to 30. We have the first development on the market right now. We have 2 others that are set to be on the market here pretty soon. And it's another, I guess, just checkbox on the vision board where, 2 years ago, if you had told me that, hey, in 2 years, you're going to be able to say, I've raised $14 million. We've purchased $20 million of real estate in San Diego. We were working with 100 different investors or so. None of that seemed realistic. Like, raising the first million seemed like the hardest thing in the world to do. And now we have single investors that have invested $1 million or more. And, I don't remember if it was while we were recording or after, but it just I think it was after, where we had a vision for what we wanted to accomplish, and we haven't quit on that vision. There's been a lot of lessons that we've learned along the way. And, the more that we do it, I feel like the better we're getting, the better our team is getting, the more efficient we are. And also the size of the challenges that you have grow. When you're managing 1 or 2 projects, it's a very different thing than managing 18 or 20 projects. But I have a fantastic partner in Christian. I couldn't ask for a better business partner. And that primarily is character-based. So he's proficient, he's brilliant, but the confidence that I have in Christian doesn't come from his knowledge or his ability to execute on these projects. It comes from his character. And I have the utmost confidence in who he is as a person, and vice versa. I know he feels the same way. And, we run in different lanes. My job is to be out in front of people, to be on podcasts, to be speaking on stages, to be meeting with our investors. His job is to be building the team and executing on the projects. And, both of us, because of the confidence that we have in one another, are able to execute at a high level and continue to grow. I'm sure one of the biggest challenges we're working with right now is we want to make ourselves average in our organization. And for most of my entrepreneurial career, I've been very clear on the fact that I'm the best guy in this company. Well, I don't want to be the best guy in the company anymore. I just want to be average, and which means hiring people better than you and surrounding yourself with people that are equal to or better than you. And that's an exciting journey that we're right at the beginning of.
Making yourself average. I'm going to write that down for sure. Is if I can be the average person in the business, then I'm hiring correctly. And that's what I tell people all the time: is that you better be hiring out the things that you're not capable of. That means you need to be hiring people that are better than you. Too many people want to be the person that knows all of it. They want to be the person that's your business is going to be totally hinged on you at that point. That's not good business to be the only to be the best person in all those spots. So I love making yourself average.
Yeah,
when you first said that, I wasn't sure where you were going to go, but yeah.
Yeah, it's strange to say that my greatest ambition is to become average in my own business. Right?
Yeah.
Not for the business to be average, for me to be average in an excellent business.
Exactly, which means your business is going to be much better than average. So
for sure.
And I would imagine, given everything that you've talked about, you've got a phenomenal vision for your business. Where is it that you're going to? I don't remember what you had mentioned your vision was last time, if we even talked about it. But maybe what was your vision for the company last year when we chatted, and then what is your vision now? How much has it changed or not changed?
It's changed. I don't know that the vision has changed a lot. What has changed is the clarity of the vision and the cohesiveness of the vision. So we started implementing EOS several months ago, which, the beginning of that is forcing you to agree on a vision. And, we envision creating a business that is, let me talk about divergence of exit points too here. So we believe that our business is capable of being a multi-billion-dollar business. I believe that Christian is a capable leader that can take it there. I also know that my exit point will come before we get to there. Christian's young and doesn't have kids yet, and I do. Yeah, I have kids and I have grandkids, and my, I guess my number is a lot smaller. And so I'm going to do everything I can to help him accomplish his number. And there will be a point that before we get there that I will probably step to the side and let other people run that race. Now, all of that being said, it may be possible to be involved doing what I love to do best, which is speaking on stages and meeting with investors and stay involved. But I've spent a career growing different businesses. That was hard on me. It was hard on my family, and I'm doing it differently now. So I don't feel like the same pressure. But at the same point, there's going to be a point where I want to travel the world with my family. I want to give them experiences, and there's only so much money that you need to be able to do that. And for me, that will be enough. So, but yeah, what is our vision? The next 3 years, the next 10 years, we want to develop 500 units in San Diego. We want to create millionaires out of our employees. So we want people who we're helping them to become wealthy. We want to create a fanatic base of investors who know that they can trust us and want to be invested with us. We see ourselves moving beyond ADU development and investment into other avenues, but still all real estate backed. And also, in that, helping one another become the best version of who we can be, which again means becoming average, so that what we're doing is we're coaching and training amazing people to do amazing work, and we're overseeing that enterprise. So, in a really 30,000 foot view, that's where we're going. We can get more granular, but that breaks down into, what do we have to do this week to make that happen? And that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's what we focus on weekly, is getting those things done.
Instead of going granular in the business, I want to go granular in what you started talking about, your numbers being smaller than your partner's number, on where it needs to be for you. And that that leads me to look at, you've got both your personal vision and your business vision, and where those two intersect is where you need to be. Making sure that those two things are in alignment for sure. Have you had conversations with your partner, Christian, about what your personal vision is on where you want to be and where your stepping off point would be versus where maybe he sees his stepping off point? Like, has that been clear between the two of you guys?
Yeah, we've talked about that.
You're on a podcast talking about it, so just
yeah, we've had that discussion, and that also can change, and that's okay too. That's one of the reasons why we meet every week, and why we do quarterly and annual planning is, you set a vision. My vision board, there are things on my vision board. Some things that I recognize that, hey, that actually turned out to be not that important to me. And so I'm okay with setting that down. Actually, if we, again, pan the camera over, I have a second vision board that's just for coaching, because I didn't have anything about coaching on the vision board I created at the end of last year. It wasn't something really that was on my radar, and now it's become enjoyable, and I want to be intentional about it. And so, we'll make adjustments, but yeah, we've had that conversation. And that's one of many. I'm not 31, and, doing a 10 or 12 hour day every day was something that I could do 20 years ago, but it's not something that I want to do or really would be healthy for me at this point. And he's very capable of doing it, so he can work circles around me. I have to be more efficient and effective with my time to keep up with him. So, yeah, we have those conversations.
And I think being honest with yourself, too, on where you want to be and what you, again, I think that it goes back to something has been kind of a theme this entire time, is identifying who you are and where you kind of want to be. And then, I wish I could remember the guest's name. He was a lawyer out of Texas, but I had him on a while back, and he talked about building a business around his lifestyle, not a lifestyle around his business. And it was one of those things, like when you've identified who you are, what you want out of your life and with your family and all of that, and then build around that, it provides so much more clarity on the business aspect, on what you should be doing in your business versus what you shouldn't be doing in the business. Because again, if you're the smartest person, and you're the only person that could do certain jobs, but yet you want to have some freedom to be with your family and do all this stuff, those two things aren't in alignment, because you're stuck in your business if that's the way it is. So understand where your personal alignment is, and understand where that fits in with the business and where you want to go. So I appreciate that you're looking at both aspects of that very well.
Yeah, well, Ben Hardy in his new book teaches this principle about making decisions from the viewpoint of the person that you intend to become. So if I look at, for me right now, well, I'll use health, for example. So I decided a year ago that I was going to win this body transformation challenge in GoBundance that you're familiar with. There's 20 or 25 other guys that are doing it. But when I schedule calls with my coach, the call that's scheduled is the 2025 winner. When I'm at the gym, I'm thinking about what it's going to be like to stand on stage and to win, and what I'm going to look like. I have a picture of what I'm going to look like. And so when I get up in the morning, it's not a decision, do I go to the gym or not go to the gym, because I already know the guy that's going to win that is going to the gym today. And if that's who I really want to be and I'm committed, then I'm going to do what he's going to do. So it simplifies decision making. And, the same thing is true whether it's, in a marriage or, with your kids or in a business. If you can identify not only who you are today, but who do I want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years, you make different decisions. There's a really great example of that. I don't remember the exact example, but there was a boat crew, and their coach had one simple question that they ran every decision that they made through. Does it make the boat go faster? So going out on the weekend and drinking, does it make the boat go faster? Yes or no? If it doesn't, then we're not making that decision. So every decision that season was made through one filter. Does it make the boat go faster? And I think that if we can get that kind of clarity on what we really want out of our life, then our life becomes much more simple. And, if I want to achieve what's on my vision board, if I want to see Yosemite and Sequoia and all those things, there are a certain number of things that I have to do today to make that happen in order to realize what that vision is. And a lot of ways it allows you to sort through the noise and make decisions just based upon what is really most important for you. Going back to what we talked about, the experience, what I wanted was to experience joy and happiness and awe with my family. And speeding through the park as fast as possible to make sure you see every single thing wasn't going to accomplish that. So the intention changed the experience, right? The clarity of vision changed the experience.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. This has been so phenomenal to kind of this is such a different podcast than we had the first time. So I really appreciated the fact that you spent another hour hour and a half hanging out here with me. And I'm very, very, very unbelievably thankful that you chose not to go the 39-cent 9mm round route, because you have impacted the world in a way that would have never happened had you chosen that route. And I'm sure that your family is way, way more grateful than I am at this point. But I thank you very much for not taking that route and for expressing that to other folks to not take that route as well and to reach out to you. So again, I want to reiterate that if anybody is on that path or feeling that way, reach out to Alan, reach out to me. Either one of us would be happy to get on a phone call with you and have a conversation about anything that you have on your mind. But Alan, that said, if folks are hearing this and they want to reach out to you, they want to learn more about coaching with you, they want to maybe they just want to book a phone call to get to know you a little bit more, what is the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Well, that's gotten a lot easier in the last just couple of weeks. So thealanunderwood.com, and whether it's for investing, coaching, flying, any of speaking, podcast invitations, you can go there and book time with me. So that is the simplest route, is thealanunderwood.com.
thealanunderwood.com. I love it. Obviously, everybody listening, you can hear Alan's passion behind what he does, the experience that he has. So please, if he can be of any service to you, please reach out to him. Let him know you heard him here on the BizDad podcast, of course. But Alan, thank you so much for jumping on. Thank you everybody for listening. I greatly appreciate it. This has been a phenomenal episode. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I thank you again for jumping on for the second time with me. I look forward to this one getting released. Please, everybody that's listening, like and subscribe. Let us know below what your favorite part of the podcast was. Leave a comment. Reach out to Alan. Say some great words to him and let him know how encouraging this podcast was for you as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you again, Alan, and we will see everybody on the next show.
Thank you so much for listening to the BizDad Podcast. We hope you found some value in your time here with us, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's show, please subscribe and share so you and your friends won't miss our upcoming episodes. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Rumble, where we continue these discussions and share more valuable content. Be the dad you know you need to be and run your business in a way you're proud to share with your kids. Keep crushing it.